how is it that these quantum computers can do so much computation in so little time that they're threat to the crypto algorithm? What is stopping us from using, I don't know, 10,000 of these chips? Is
Right.
that is that a possibility?
And that was envisioned by Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever is that person or group of person is there. They had envisioned that quantum computers will be a reality in future.
Is there deterministic way to identify when we will be able to reach that stage where we can, let's say, break RSA 2048? When is it that, hell is going to break loose? And do we have enough time to work on it? Quantum doomsday, like when do you think people will start screaming, selling their Bitcoin, deleting their compromised photos? See, the hash is finite. It cannot go beyond a number, and theoretically you can have infinite input.
Correct.
So
Correct.
how come you have infinite input, finite output, and then still not be able to have a hash collision? I mean, I cannot understand the maths here. Hello everyone. So Google released their Willow quantum chip yesterday, and I believe it's their state-of-the-art quantum chip in the market. And they're boasting about two achievements. One of them is that the errors which typically happen with the qubits, so they're proportional to the number of qubits. The more qubits you have, the more errors you have in the system, because of the rate at which the qubits exchange information with the environment. But their claim is that as they scale, the errors exponentially go down. And the other achievement which they mentioned was that in a benchmark computation, which they did on the chip, it took it less than 5 minutes, which would take the latest supercomputer today uh, 10 centillions. I don't even know what that means, but in simple maths, it is 10 to the power of 25, which is probably even more than the age of universe itself. And this to me is a tremendous achievement, I would say. So I'm pretty excited for the future. But then something else happened. Suddenly we started seeing news popping up. Hey, your Bitcoin is not safe anymore. Your wallets are going to hack tomorrow. So, there's no way you can protect your wallets because of the way Bitcoin does encryption. And so I'm pretty excited to discuss with you guys as well on what is the FUD being created, what are the practical implications, what is the basic math behind encryption, crypto, as well as quantum computing and quantum attacks. So with that, welcome to the Jhacker show. A pun on my name, but yeah, I like it. So I thought of creating this show. The basic idea was that we are seeing a lot of information on the internet, a lot of podcasts, people talking all corporate jargons and business and this and that. And I basically wanted to move away from that and have an informal setting where we can actually talk some technology, which we really lack on the internet. So we pick a topic, we get experts from the field, we brainstorm and waste their time and make sure that our viewers are happy. So today I have with me Ajit, my very good friend,
Hi.
uh, founder and CEO of PureID, and congratulate him. He recently got acquired by a US-based company, ColorTokens.
Thanks.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I,
Thank you.
I hope you made a lot of money.
My wife made.
And I have with me Satyam Tyagi, who's the VP of products at ColorTokens, and he's an IIT graduate, and I hear he's a guru on crypto. So who better than Ajit and you guys to talk about this? So first, before we start, for our viewers' sake, I really want to understand how is it that these quantum computers can do so much computation in so little time that they're threat to the crypto algorithms of today? Like, what is different between qubits and what is different in the conventional processors?
Okay. So, Satyam, do you want me to take stab at it?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Asim. Thanks for getting us on this podcast, and this is very valuable as the things are getting muckier. So we want few people to come on board and discuss this out and put some light on these things. So happy to be here. Thanks for this honor. Let's get into this. See, conventionally we use either optic based or magnetic based storage or computing systems, right? Where small magnetic domains, you have spin like south and north. Okay, so if the magnetic domains are aligned towards north, then that is read as one. If it is towards south, then it is interpreted as zero. Right now, same goes with any other system. If you want to tap into EM waves, electronic or magnetic waves, impulse. So crusts are taken as one and troughs are taken as zero, right? So any of these conventional systems, they exist in binary, either one or zero, right? Now, quantum state. Now, when you have these semiconductors, etc., when you put them into cryogenic environment and super cool them, okay, and they become superconductors, right? Then between the molecular spaces, you have qubits. Okay, now particularity of these qubits are they have spin. Okay, so they are always spinning, right? And at any given point of time, you cannot exactly determine. You can sieve out a state, but they exist in both the states, plus and minus. Okay, now suppose you want to guess a number, okay, and you have 2 bits. From 2 bits, practically how many numbers you can have? 0 to 3, right? 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1, right? Now you have to guess a number which is 4, and you are sorry 3, and you are starting from 0 0. You see whether that's the number that you want to match. So we want to match 3. Okay, so I have 2 bits, then I have to do 4 processing cycles. Okay, first I have to match 0 0 whether it is the number that I'm looking for. No, then do 0 1, then do 1 0, and then you do 1 1, and then you get the final result. Okay, this is the bit I was looking for, right? So you have to do 4 processing cycles. You have to 4 times load the data, unload the data, or flip the data, right? And then you compare. Now, if you have 2 qubits, both are presenting both the states. Okay, so at the same time, at one processing cycle, you can get the value 4, then that is 1 1, that denotes 3 in binary, and you got the answer. Or you can sieve it out that this is the value. Okay, you just XOR it and you get that 1 1 is the 0. You will get 0 0 if that value, both the values are common, right? So in this way, you can, in one processing cycle, you can get what should be the desired output, right? So now if you increase the number of the bits, then within very, very less manageable cycles, you can guess very, very big numbers, right? Now with this, you cannot brute force private keys directly. First of all, you need public keys as an input, right, to guess the private keys, right? So typically RSA, when we are talking about uh, using quantum computers to break it, okay, you cannot guess the private key directly. It is still a big thing. Okay, what we have are certain algorithms for factorizing public key. So public key in RSA system, what is private key is you have two prime numbers, large prime numbers P and Q. Product of that is part of public key, right? If you have that product, challenge is because public key has to be made public. Okay, you have to give it to others so that whatever I encrypt with my private key, which is secret, others can verify using my public key, right? That's how you can authenticate that I have given this data. Right? So public key has to be given out. Now you have this product P and Q as public part of public key available with everyone, right? Now people are free to take that, run into some quantum system, some algorithms, and then break it. Means factorize it. You can separate out the P and Q, right? Now that can be efficiently done with some algorithms, right? Those are very, very simple algorithms. Okay. Uh, for few numbers, you can do it by hand. Okay, Satyam can explain that very, very well. Okay, but now when you put that algorithms on quantum computers, then very easily you can break the systems. Of course, there are some nuances to that. Satyam is an expert on that. He can talk about it. Okay, so by and large, this is the idea that with factorizing algorithms, putting it on quantum computers, you can easily break the big numbers. Okay. So that's the background. Asim, if you have any questions, we can take that, or we can go to Satyam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll ask a lot of questions. Let's hear from Satyam and then.
Yeah. Thank you, Asim. Thank you, Ajit, for inviting me here. So, yes, it's a very exciting time, I believe, having more advancement in quantum. I don't see, I mean, I have been reading some articles. I don't see this as the quantum apocalypse time. I see it more as another milestone. It is definitely a significant milestone, but it is not the end of the world yet. So, to answer your question, Asim, the thought process here is that if we really have a large scale quantum computer, some of the things that we take for granted in our cryptography, which is the public key cryptography, can be broken by it. And as Ajit explained, there are good algorithms to which can leverage the quantum acceleration that Ajit described. That instead of sequentially going answers one by one, you can get all the answers. He took an example of a couple of qubits, but if we can have hundreds of qubits, it is an exponential number of answers we can get in one shot, and that gives us the acceleration. Not all problems can be accelerated by quantum, so there is some translation happens to make it accelerated, and that's the example. For factorization, we have Shor's algorithm, which does this translation such that quantum acceleration can be used. But as today's technology, since the number of qubits is limited, so its practical application is not there. You can't really break large scale um, RSA keys, for example, yet. Uh, Obviously, theoretically, it's possible. The practicality is the limitations of the physics that we use, as Ajit explained, to do the quantum large scale quantum computer is the challenge. And I think Google's claims are they are able to tackle some of those challenges and make it more easier and sort of, as I said, I see it as a milestone to get to the really large scale quantum computers.
Okay.
Yeah, Ajit,
Okay.
so any more
Okay. So
questions?
before we get into the whole Google and Bitcoin thing, uh, so Ajit mentioned, you can factorize, you get P and Q. What exactly is required to be able to crack the keys? Is it the value of P and Q both, or how does it work? Explain as if you're explaining to a layman.
Right, right. Let me share something to make that easy.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Just
I love visuals.
yeah. So just a small example here. This is an example of actually, if you don't imagine the grayed out part, the example is of factorizing a number. We are using Shor's algorithm here, and it uses this concept of finding the remainders and finding a period for that. And if we can find the period, which means get a value of 1, then we can actually factorize the numbers. So I'm doing a little bit of a jump that yes, I'm not proving why, but let's go with that if we can find this, where at what power of 2 we get a value of 1, we have got the period and we can factorize the number we are trying to factorize. In this case, the number is 35 that we are trying to factorize. The challenge is each step has to be done one by one, 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 power 15, 2 power so on. And that, as this number is small, 35, so the period is small. As the number gets bigger, this computation can go on forever. The beauty of the quantum computer here, what I'm kind of showing as a diagram, kind of a fuzzy diagram here, is that you can give all these inputs in one shot and get all the outputs in one shot. Problem that happens is now we need to extract, and that's where the example that Ajit gave, it collapses and you will not get all the results, you'll get one of the results, and then you're back to square one. So there is some technology we use called quantum Fourier transform using the spins and the phases to separate these out and get the specific number we are looking for, in this case 1. And once we have that, then we are able to factorize. Now, for 3 qubits, as I'm showing here, it is kind of straightforward. It works fine. There's not so much errors. Even if there are errors, we can check them. But as this increases, there are errors. And then we are not able to do it at scale. I cannot have 100 qubits yet. Once I do have that, then I can really scale this up much faster. Ajit, would you like to add something here?
No, this is quite clear. So this is about factorization, finding factors of 35, which is 7 and 5. Right? There are unique factors. Right? So you're finding a number which divides 35 and gives a remainder 1. Okay. So as we find it out, that number, okay, we are able to factorize that. Right. So uh, that's pretty straightforward. You have P into Q. You want to factorize that so that you get P and Q. Once you have that, then yeah, you have practically found the private key, and you can now break the algorithm, or you can do whatever, impersonation, etc. Right? Very
All right,
clearly
all right,
defined.
all right. So let me get this straight. The more number of qubits you have, the more number of input you can give. Is
Exactly.
that the correlation in terms of doing the computation in parallel for a large set of numbers and getting the results
Right.
within a cycle? Does that relate to what you were saying, Ajit, or did I get it wrong?
Yes. So let's say if you have a RSA key of 2048 bits, then
Hmm.
at least P and Q is half of that size. Okay, 1024. Let's assume it's around that size, right? So now you have to guess that number. So you need significant number of qubits to do that, right? If someone claims that we have uh, a quantum engine with 500 qubits, then I mean you are just a step away. You just double that, and you are able to break that, right? You can have 1,000 qubits to break an algorithm in a very practical time, right? So that is threatening, of course. How much that threat is practical, we will see. What all safeguards are provided by the current practices, the way we have built our TLS communications, the way we have built bitcoins, etc. That remains a part of discussion. But yes, with more number of qubits, more you can break it in practical time. Satyam.
Yeah, so just carrying on to Ajit's example, trying to factorize a number of 2048 bits is a sub-exponential problem with using classical computers, which means the amount of time is proportional exponentially to the number of bits. So 2048 bits, if I raise something to that power, you can imagine how big a number it is. It is not completely to that power, it's about cube root of that, but still, it's still huge. It's still in hundreds of bits or thousands of bits, depending on what the key size is. What quantum is computer is in algorithm is saying is, I will reduce it to an exponential time. Now, instead of raising to the power of 1024 or 2048, I'm raising 2048 to the power of 3, which is a much smaller number. It's a 1,000 multiplied by 1,000 multiplied by 1,000 is just billion.
Yep.
Versus if you raise 10 to the power of 1,000, you will just counting a number, seeing a number with 1,000 zeros.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, that is really the change that quantum computers are promising at this point. As Ajit said, how well we will accomplish it, it's yet to be seen.
All right, all right. So if I got it correct, the more number of qubits we will have, the more chances of being able to crack PKI or RSA. Uh, so my mind is exploding with questions. I'll start one by one. So how about if I have these state-of-the-art quantum chips and put them in arrays? Why can't we do that? What is stopping us from using, I don't know, 10,000 of these chips? Is
Right.
that a possibility?
Right. Satyam, you want to take a
Yeah,
stab?
so Yeah, so the idea is that you want to connect these qubits in a way that I can give all the inputs and get all the outputs. The problem that happens is that there is interference, and as you add more qubits, you get more errors. And if once your errors are also increasing with the number of qubits, at some point the output is garbage. And then you are not able to really scale it. And that is one of the limitations, at least, that we are aware of. I'm sure there are other physics related limitations on how you bring these together and make this happen. As Ajit explained, it's supercooling, and some of the technology required to make this happen is also not that simple. And that's one of the reasons why only Google's and IBM's who have sufficient funds to invest are seriously thinking about it. It's still a far way that you and I will have quantum chips in our phones or something to be able to do something meaningful with them.
So, Seem, it's not as simple as taking two chips and putting them together and cascading their inputs and outputs together, right? And have double the capability. No, it's not that simple. Remember when we were at IBM, right, around 2007-8? So just few years around that, IBM uh, had conveyed, or they had published that they have aligned the qubits to write IBM, right? That itself
Yeah.
was a big achievement, right?
Yeah.
Now, having producing the qubits in this super conductor environment, okay, and then making do something which you want is very, very difficult task, very, very resource and energy intensive, right? So you just cannot have two, and that's actually simply not possible, right? So you have to phase wise, you have to increase. That's why it has taken so many years from 4 qubit to what we are claiming. Okay, subsequently it will be faster, but it's not as simple as 2 plus 2 is 4, right? And Satyam has very well told that there are issues with the phases, etc. There are errors which we have to deal with, right? Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I keep hearing, and I think you also mentioned that theoretically it is possible, but practically it is not. So when you say theoretically it's possible, you're referring to the maths, but
Yes.
making it possible on the qubits, we don't have that kind of computation, right? Or that many number of qubits on a chip. Is that correct? Or
That is exactly right. So, as we are looking at algorithms, obviously we have algorithms that work in the classical sense. For example, for factorization, we have sieve-based algorithms, which are very, very fast. But those may not be scalable by quantum computers. So we come up with newer algorithms, and we were taking example of Shor's in the example we showed of factorizing 35. When we take something like Shor's algorithm, it's a mapping of the factorization problem to the period finding problem. And the reason we can use this is because it is designed in a way that it can leverage the quantum acceleration to speed up, to reduce this to polynomial time or simple cubic time instead of the exponential time it was. So today we have looked at some problems and designed these algorithms which work. So for the specific problem of factorization, it is possible. What may happen in the future, even on the math side, that we may be able to map other problems, find new algorithms that can leverage the quantum chips and leverage that acceleration. So we have some examples today, but once this becomes practical, we may even get more of these math. People will work on it and obviously grow the field as it becomes practical. But you are exactly right. It is today not very practical to solve at least larger problems yet without having the larger qubit quantum computer.
okay.
Ajit?
So is there a deterministic way to identify when we will be able to reach that stage where we can, let's say, break RSA 2048? Is there maths behind it, or is there human effort behind it in terms of we keep on doing research. We don't know when we will do a breakthrough or a small breakthrough, and then we will wait for another breakthrough. How does somebody define that, okay, even if you're using XYZ algorithm, you are safe to a certain extent, let's say 10 years or 20 years? Like, can we determine that? Because uh, companies that have anything to do with uh, crypto, or crypto as in uh, the actual crypto, not the media
Crypto.
crypto,
Yeah, not that coins.
and quantum crypto, they create, they have to create, right? To sell their products, they have to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So I just want to understand that when is it that, hell is going to break loose, and do we have enough time to work on it?
Right. Satyam, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'll share one part that just to clarify, the math to specifically break RSA exists, the physics does not yet. So it is dependent to execute that math. I need the physics to work and the actual machine to be available. But we know exactly what we want to execute to break it. We are able to do it at small scale because that's where our physics is today. Um, to ask the question when the physics will be ready, that we will be breaking these things, we don't know because there are unknowns. It has been said for the last 20 years that in the next 10 years it will happen, but it hasn't happened in the last 20 years. Uh, it Things have improved. I'm not saying we are at the same place as Ajit was giving the example of IBM. Where we were, we have improved, but we really don't have a future sort of prediction that when that will happen. So uh, at least that's where we are today. Ajit, you want to add to that?
Yeah. So, Asim, as Satyam said, we have the maths with us to break RSA. We always had that, but we didn't had the physics, right? And we are seeing that physics is being developed. Okay, that is one. Second thing is we are not certain of the capabilities what these companies like D-Wave and Google or IBM, okay, or China for that instance has. Okay, people are very secretive about it. Okay, and what we get to learn is from the public disclosures that these companies are making, or from whistleblowers, etc. Right, because this is such a power which people don't want to talk more about it. Okay, or even if they have, they will just talk very little about it, so that just to drop signals that we have that capability, but you keep guessing how much of capability we have, right? So that's the thing. So, and what remains to be discussed is, even if let's say someone has complete capability of breaking RSA 2048, which is practically we are using everywhere, okay, and 4096 as well. So can we break that? Okay, or how this can be leveraged? Is it even practically possible for someone to get everyone's public key and try to factorize that, etc.? So that is something which we have to discuss. So in 2018, that Black Hat, when this paper Cryptopocalypse was disclosed, was presented, suddenly after that, the interest in quantum computers and this crypto apocalypse started to be discussed, right? And various companies jumped into action to give protection against this quantum computer threat, right? But yeah, a lot of things has to be discussed, but we are not sure whether already people have it. People can build those capabilities in a very short time, or they don't have it, they are just dropping the message. We are really not sure about that.
Okay. All right. So let's come to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So from what I know of blockchain generally, I think there are two places where crypto is used. There may be more. I'm not a blockchain expert, but one is the PKI, where you have a private key and a public key, and then which is derived by 12 words, 24 words, or whatever the wallets specify. And one is used for hashing, uh, I'm assuming for the blocks, right? And so, if I'm not wrong, Bitcoin uses, I don't know, RSA 2048, and SHA, I don't know SHA what number, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Diksha is the best, the best.
yeah. So, so that falls under the same uh, uh, category in terms of we don't know when we will break uh, the encryption, right? So maybe you want to quickly give a brief overview of the crypto used in the crypto. So whenever I say crypto, it feels like the word hacking, the original meaning and the media meaning. So
Yes,
hackers
completely.
broke into company and stole data versus researchers doing something. So yeah, so give us a brief of how the crypto on the blockchain works.
Right, right. So this year when I was at DEF CON, we saw a big billboard at Crypto Privacy Village saying crypto means cryptography, right, and not cryptocurrency. But anyways, for this conversation, we will keep this word for interchanging the meanings wherever, however we need, and we feel comfortable. Okay, so that's the disclosure. Okay,
Let's call cryptography crypto, and let's call it
cryptocurrency.
blockchain. Okay,
Okay,
blockchain
blockchain.
and
Yeah.
crypto.
Right, right, right. So Satyam, I will go first at it. Okay. So
Sure.
if I have to take blockchain, let's see what blockchain is comprising of. It comprises of blocks. What block comprises of is transactions. What transaction comprises of is every transaction defines an input and output block. Input block states that if let's say I'm Asim, okay, so Asim has received some 10 bitcoins from some previous transaction. So you have to give reference of that block and transaction.
I
Okay,
wish.
that input, uh, have I understated that number? So I'm trying to spend that input in my output block. So in output block, saying that I'm transferring this 10 bitcoins. Out of this 10 bitcoins, I'm transferring five to us, Murtuza, and five to Antrish. Let's say, okay, that is my output block. So this is one transaction. Okay, now I have specified names that Asim had received 10 bitcoins in some transaction. Here you don't have actual names. Here you have public address, right? And again, for Murtuza and Asim, Murtuza and Antriksh, you don't have their names, you have their public key. Okay, so Antriksh will give you his public key, public address, saying that transfer me the money on this public address, and Murtuza will give the same. Okay, and you had also given your public address. Now, what is that public address? It is a derivation from your public key. Okay, so now what is that public key? It is not RSA. Okay, it is ECDSA, and there is a very specific sec 256 P sec P 256K. Uh, some jumbling over there. Yeah. So that is the specific curve that Bitcoin uses. Okay, and that also can be broken using quantum computers because it's a finite field problem. So as it is applicable for this RSA, similarly it is applicable for elliptical curve as well. Right now, if we are disclosing our public key, then anyone can take that public key, right? Now, remember, you have transferred the money to or bitcoins to Antriksh and Murtuza's keys, right? Now, if they have to spend it, they have to prove, they can write a transaction and they have to prove that I am in possession of the private key. So you have to submit a proof. How do you submit a proof? You sign this block that you have created, right? You have to sign with your private key and you have to disclose your public key. Okay, before that your public key is never disclosed. The public address you have, okay, it's your public key is scrambled, it is hashed at multiple times with SHA and with RIPE MD 160, etc. There are schemes to get the public address, right? So with those operations you get the public address. From that public address you can never get the public key. It's when you want to spend that amount, you create a transaction in which you give the public key and you sign that transaction. Sign means you take hash of the complete block and encrypt with your private key. So someone can verify that and using the public key that you are disclosing, right? It's only at the time of spend you are disclosing the public key, right? Now, when you submit this transaction, spend transaction, it is sent to all the nodes which are processing that, okay, or all the miners, right? So miners will collect such transactions and they will validate one by one. They will validate, okay, you have said that you have received an input and you want to spend it. We want to see whether you have the keys for this input public address. Okay, so okay, you have signed it, here is the signature, and here is the public key. So we'll verify it using this public key. If it is verified, then this transaction is valid, and we will put it in a block and we'll mine it. If we mine it successfully before all others and propagate to all others, then everyone will accept this as a next block, right? And I will get the whatever Coinbase is awarded with a valid block mined. I will get that as a miner. Okay, if I've processed a fraudulent block, I will not be getting that reward. Okay, so that's why it's incentivized to process a genuine block. Okay, so I can do that only if I have received your public key, right? Now this is the period when you have disclosed your public key. Someone can take that, run it through uh, quantum computers, and reroute whatever you have spent. Suppose you want to give it to Murtuza and Antariksh. I can change the outgoing address and put my address and re-sign the transaction and submit it to all the nodes to verify and accept that new transaction as a valid transaction. Okay, so this is how I can hijack, but that time gap is very, very less. It's not practically possible. But anyways, there is that window when you are disclosing your public key, only then someone can grab that, recreate the transaction, and then publish it. Okay, so there is, theoretically there is possibility, but practically it's not possible. That's what I think. And that was envisioned by Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever is that person or group of person is there. They had envisioned that blockchain will quantum computers will be a reality in future, and we have that threat. So that's why they had designed in which you never disclose your public unless you want to spend those coins, right? I hope it gives you clarity on how the Bitcoin or blockchain based technology or cryptocurrencies work by and large.
Okay. Okay. So when you create a wallet, let's understand the process right from the start. When you create a wallet, you essentially give a passphrase, right? And this passphrase is basically used to generate your private key, right?
Okay, so whatever passphrase you give, it is hashed. That hash is one of the inputs to generate your elliptical keys, elliptical
Okay.
key ECC keys.
Okay.
Okay, so that's an input,
All right.
right? Through that you get public and private key.
All right. So essentially, the passphrase, the hash of the passphrase is then used for whatever within the wallet, whatever addresses you want to create, like let's say Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Tezos, whatever you want to create, it'll use the same hash to generate the keys for each of the blockchain
Correct.
and
Now the thing
finally
is,
create the address.
yeah. Now the thing is, the string has whatever passphrase you have chosen. It has very less entropy, right? If I can guess the same string, I will get the same public-private key there. So when you generate keys from a poor entropy like a passphrase, right? The problem is if you also give the same passphrase, you will also have exact same keys. And now if you have the same private key, you can spend my money, which is on my public address, right? So that's a real threat.
Okay. So hold on a minute. So let's say if I'm able to guess, theoretically it's possible, but if let's say if a wallet takes 12 words as passphrase and you're able to get the 12 words, guess the 12 words in a specific order, or so the order of the words is also important, or I don't know how, once you take the word, how do you concatenate it and then take a hash? Is that also important here?
Yeah. So it's simple. Hash is deterministic, right? Same input, you will get same output, right? So if I give same passphrase, okay, then you will have same set of public private keys and same public address. Even slight change in the passphrase will result into a totally different looking public address, public and private keys, right?
All right. And so this hash, what algorithm is typically used for generating this hash? SHA-256.
Yeah.
And so essentially that is also under threat because of
No.
our quantum friend here, or no?
No. Quantum friend threatens only asymmetric key cryptography, which is also called as public key cryptography, right? Not the symmetric. Symmetric means where you have one key to encrypt and the same key to decrypt.
Yes.
Encryption and decryption is done by the symmetric key. Asymmetric key is used to authenticate. It means I will sign something. Using my public, you can verify that I have signed it and no one else has signed it, unless he has the same key.
All right.
Correct?
Now,
So private key is used for authenticity. And then you have hashing. Hashing has nothing to do with encryption. It is just one-way signature that you are generating. Okay. Let's say I will just take under a minute and explain you that. Okay. Let's say you have hundreds of lines of content. Okay. And let's say we have a buffer of say 32 words. Okay. You take first 32 words, scramble it. Okay. Then you have a state one. Take next 32 words on that buffer, scramble it, you have state two. Go on doing this. At last, you will get a 32-bit, 32 word output, which is totally scrambled. Okay. Now this is unique to this content. Now, if you change anything in that content, the scrambling pattern looks totally different. Right. So this is called as one-way hash. Now, this from this 32 words, you cannot get the 100 lines of content back. So that's why it is called as one-way hash. It uniquely identifies that this hash belongs to this content. Okay. Any change in that content will result in a different hash. So it says it's a different signature for a different content. Right. So this is again not threatened by quantum computers.
all right. All right. So I have two questions here. One is a very stupid question, and one is on the current state of the art, or techniques to break or cause collision. So the first is, see, the hash is finite, right?
Yeah, correct.
So it cannot go beyond a number, and theoretically you can have infinite input, right? So
correct.
how come you have infinite input, finite output, and then still not be able to have a hash collision? I mean, I cannot understand the maths here.
Right. Satyam, you want to take a stab?
Yes,
And I will also
I
give
can take
a
it.
reminder to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you think of a hash SHA-256, the reason it's called 256 because it has 256 bits.
Yes.
So 256 bits mean there are 256 zeros, 255 zeros and a 1, 255 zeros and a 1 0, and so on to all the way to 255 ones.
Yeah.
If you create this whole list, there are 2 to the power 256
Yes, absolutely.
possible outputs,
Absolutely.
which is comparable to the number of atoms in the universe, actually much bigger number than that.
Right.
So that's why even though it is finite, it is enormous. So to generate a collision, we will have to create, if by luck, I mean, there are other attacks where we are able to generate collisions in some smaller hashes, but to generate a collision at that scale is a really hard challenge. So yes, in theory, input can be infinite, but this is really large finite, even though it's finite. Ajit, you want to add?
Yeah, so you have very well explained that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when Satoshi Nakamoto designed Bitcoins, why he chose a specific curve, SEC P256K1, is because for this curve, any 256-bit input can be a possible point on that curve. Any other curve you take, then not all to raise to 256-bit permutation combinations can be a possible point on that curve. Then you have restricted field to have valid points. So that's why they chose this particular curve, so that you have full 256-bit range, right? So that's why it is computationally impractical to find a collision with SHA-256 hashes. Right?
All right. So basically, as they say, it's Bhagwan Bharose, right? We assume that there will be no collision because the set or the number set is so huge that there's absolutely very less probability that two different strings would have the same hash, but it's still there, right?
Again,
That's the premise.
Asim, there are two things here. Okay, so one is if you give same input, there will be same output. It's the nature
Yeah,
of
that's
hash,
obvious. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Possibility of you guessing the same input is more practical than finding another text which has the
Same.
same this. So that is what we call collision. You have two random set of text, and you can see that both produce the same SHA-256 hash. Okay, there can be such two contents, but somewhere in the universe, they are not in proximity. They are not near you, and they are not accessible to you, right? There is a primage, first primage resistance where you say this is the content, and now you give me another content which has the same hash. That is something which very dangerous, and that you can do with MD5. That's why MD5 is
Yes, yes,
not
exactly.
practical to use, right?
Yeah,
And
and
something similar is happening with this as well. Sorry, first primary resistance is this is the content, and you might get the text as well. Okay, and secondary is you have this text and you have another text which produces the same hash. Right, that is dangerous.
yeah.
Our is
So,
getting
can I ask a question of Ajit in this context?
please.
So, you talked about hashing in terms of the password and this. You did not talk about in the context of proof of work.
I
Is
was
that
actually coming to that. I was
okay?
I
If
was
you are
about
coming
to
to
come
that,
to
I
that.
can wait.
So so it so I was looking at blockchain, the technologies, and then I realized it uses proof of work, which is essentially partial hash collision. And I remember when I started my career, I was working on an anti-spam product, and one of the technologies used there was hash cache
Yeah.
to delay delivery of an email so that your client, SMTP client, can prove that it's genuine client. So it has to do partial hash collision, or hash cache is what we say, and then an SMTP server would accept an email because it knows that the client has wasted time, which means it cannot be a spammer,
Spammer.
because
Yeah.
the whole premise of spamming is to be able to send hundreds and thousands and lakhs of emails at a stretch. And I now recall this is the same technology that was the premise for proof of work in blockchain as well. To be able to prove that you have done something, you have a partial hash collision. So essentially it is, if you have less number of bits, you can have uh, collision easily. As you increase the number of bits, the chances of creating collision also decrease, right?
Right. So that directly relates to the difficulty of mining a block. Okay. So, Satyam, should I discuss that?
Yeah, that was my question. That we didn't discuss that,
Right.
and that is part of the crypto that it uses. And is that threatened by
Right.
the
Quantum.
quantum
Yeah.
acceleration?
Uh, uh, See, first we will discuss the difficulty problem, okay, in blockchain or bitcoins, why it was introduced, how it was introduced. So we all know proof of work, okay. So proof of work is to prove that I have worked, I have mined this block. Mined means what I have done is, or the what difficulty says is, let's say currently we want to mine a block, and when blockchain was designed or bitcoin was designed, it was designed to mine per block, or every block should be mined after an interval of 10 minutes, right? Now how we can delay that, right? So you have to compute a hash of a block. Suppose we get a block which has hundreds of transactions in it. You take a hash of it. Okay, it's very easy to calculate. You give the content and you get the hash, right? Now what we say is you generate a hash in such a way, or you include a number that is called as nonce. You introduce a number, right? That number has to be such found or computed so that you produce a hash which has first 10 digits as 0, right? First 10 digits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then whatever is there, I mean, we don't care. Okay, but first 10 digits have to 0. So what you do is you enumerate. You add nuns as 1, and you see what is the output. Then you add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You go on increasing that number, or you start enumerating till you hit hash string which has 10 leading zeros. Okay, now if you are able to do that in say 8 minutes and submit it, right, submit that block to everyone, okay, then what happens is the system understands that since this block was computed in less than 10 minutes, so we have to increase the difficulty. So next block should be mined with higher difficulty, that is you should have 11 zeros. Okay, so find a nonce which can produce 11 zeros. Right, now if that is computed in 10 minutes, fine, the difficulty for next block will remain same. Otherwise, the difficulty, if you have taken more than 10 minutes, then the difficulty is reduced. Right, now all the people putting their money, because whoever blocks a mines a valid block, he gets the base coin reward. Right, so now everyone wants to get that reward, which to initially it was 50 bitcoins for every valid block mined, then it got half to 25, then 12.5, and then 6.25, something of that sort. Right, so those are the bitcoins that you want. So for that, you shouldn't be committing any fraud, because your block will be mined block will be rejected by all other nodes. Right, so that's why you have to stick to that. You cannot reduce the difficulty and mine the block. You have to stick to what democratic system has decided. Right, now, is this threatened? uh, I don't see, or I haven't read any article which says this computing will be threatened. Because the way hashing works cannot be accelerated. It's my understanding. I might be wrong over there. Cannot be accelerated with the quantum computers. Satyam.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to say, that as far as we know, this is not threatened. And the signing part, which involves public key cryptography, is threatened. And the hashing parts, even the proof of work part, is not threatened by quantum computing.
Right.
All right. So hashing is not threatened by quantum computers.
Right.
So if you are utilizing hashes in your products, and a post-quantum crypto company comes to you and says, hell is going to break loose, you can safely say we use hashes only.
Correct.
Right. Now there are hash-based public key cryptographies which are also coming, signature-based, hash-based, etc. That is a different thing. But two things: can we break hashes? No. Can we utilize quantum computers to generate hashes faster? That is a possibility that I'm not aware of as of now.
So, so you mentioned hashes, and symmetric key cryptography is not prone to quantum attacks.
Right.
Now, what is the fundamental difference on why quantum computers cannot break or cause a collision or break symmetric key cryptography, and why they can do PKI or public-private key cryptography? What is the fundamental difference? Because if you look at let's talk from hashing perspective. If you look at MD5, it was broken by conventional computers, right? We didn't use quantum computers for that. So then, if they can do it, why can't quantum computers speed it up? Like, what is the fundamental difference here?
Okay, so I will take a layman's approach. Okay, and Satyam can talk English and maths. Okay, so
Sure.
so let's take first thing, hashes. Okay, MD5, the space was 16 bits, very very small space.
Yeah.
Or 16 characters. Yeah, 16 characters. Right, it was a very small space. So that's where birthday paradox comes in. Right, where if you have 366 people in a room, then there is 100% possibility that two people will have same birthday. Right, but if you have more than 23 people in a room, if you have 23 people in a room, there is a 50% chances that two people will have same birthday. With every person in adding in the room, let's say you have around 40 people, then you have 60 or 80% chances that two people will have same birthdays. That's what you might have seen in your classroom. in the class of 30, you definitely have two people sharing their birthdays, right? So that if you have small space for hashing, then obviously the hashes are going, you will definitely find a collision, or you can produce a collision, okay? Because the space is so small. So that's why the space was increased in SHA-1, and SHA-256 is even bigger. So SHA-1, it was told that by end of 2018, the collision for SHA-1 will be there in the existence, right? And Google's scientists proved it right. Right. So and we were in that black hat session, Asim, when this was disclosed, right? So it was in 2018. So we were witness to that disclosure of Google, right?
So
2019's black hat, sorry, in Las Vegas. So that is why now just the nature of how we compute hashes, it cannot be broken. You cannot guess the text from the hash. The reverse is simply not possible.
yeah, you can only cause a collision.
Correct. Yeah. Now the symmetric key, right? You just have ciphertext. You don't have the key to encrypt or decrypt it. You just have ciphertext, right? And that's a random text. You cannot, you don't know how to process that simply, right? In asymmetric key cryptography, you have the private key in a scrambled form. Unscrambling it will take a number of years. Okay, but you can do that if provided you accelerate using some algorithms and quantum computers.
Okay, wait.
You
What
have
do you mean by private key in a scrambled form? You get public key. You don't have access to the private key.
Yes. Yeah. So what was your private key? P and Q. P separate, Q separate. You multiply that, that becomes part of your public key.
Public key. Okay.
Public key is with you. Now you have to
Got
just
it.
validate that.
Got it. So essentially you're referring to public key as the scrambled private key.
Okay. Right. So you have something to work on to get the private key and then break the system, break the cipher system, right? But in symmetric key cryptography, you don't have anything. You just have ciphertext, right?
So let's say if I have ciphertext and if I know the algorithm that is used, then I know the length of the key. Right?
Okay, so by nature, how we design cipher systems is if you get a ciphertext, you should not be able to predict what algorithm was used, what was the block size or key size in that. Okay, no guess you should be getting out of that. Okay, if you can guess that, then the system is broken.
Okay.
Like CBC, AES 256 or 128 CBC, if you have a pattern and it's a block cipher, right? So the same block, okay, if you do an ECB, electronic code book encryption, that is block by block encryption, plain, okay, the whatever the pattern you have in the image or the text, the same pattern you will see. If you have A, B, 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 C, 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 the A is scrambled into something, B is scrambled into something, C is scrambled into something, and you will have the same pattern. One line of this, one line of that, and so pattern is seen. So that's why ECB is not recommended. So you have to scramble that when you are encrypting, because you shouldn't be guessing what the content is or what the content is like, right? Otherwise the system is broken. So that's why these are not threatened. Okay. If you have any follow-up questions, we can take that, or we can go to Satyam for mathematical explanations.
No. I was going to answer a little bit differently, going to a little bit basics, that we have had coding of messages or hiding of them forever. What cryptography brought is that the algorithm, as you said, is well known, but it's the key that is hidden, right? That was the core idea of encryption, that algorithm is well known, everybody knows what it is. We are trying to make sure that the key, if it is hidden, it is hard to get to the message, right? So that was your symmetric key. And as hashing, you guys discussed, it has always information loss. You start from a big text and you get a very small output. So there is obviously no way, because information is lost. If you remember, we used to do image compression with JPEG and stuff. There were lossy compressions. Once you have lost it, you can't gain the full fidelity of the image. So same idea, you cannot get back what you have lost. It's already gone from the image. Public key cryptography, coming to that, relies on the concept that there are hard problems. When I say hard, I mean they are hard to compute exponential time problems. You can get a little bit more technical, non-polynomial, NP hard, NP complete, and all that. But the idea is these are hard problems, but they have a property that if you know the answer, if I know the factor, then I can easily divide the large number by that factor and find other factors. Right? So by its very nature, it is designed for these hard problems. And that's what public key cryptography relies on. And those are the ones, some of those actually, I should say, some of those are the ones that are threatened by quantum acceleration. But your symmetric key based uh, algorithms are not threatened by that, if that makes sense.
Got it. Got it. But I'll come back to hashing. So you mentioned about Google as well. Google researchers who broke or basically had a collision. So I don't know if you read the paper, but I just want to understand, did they do simple process of creating the hash and matching and then scaled it up to their cloud infrastructure to be able to do large numbers of matches, and that's how they found a collision, or whether they used some certain specific techniques to find a collision?
Yeah. So they did computations, right? They took large number of samples of files, etc., ran them through hashings. So at every stage of hashing, right, the as I said, data gets scrambled, right? So you have to find out some text which nullifies, which introduces a difference, and subsequently it nullifies that difference. And after that small blip, you have the same output. And after that, if everything is same, so if you see those colliding files that Google had produced, it has exactly same content. It's just that the Google's logo background is different. In one file, it is
Yeah,
blue,
yeah,
and
yeah,
red in
yeah, yeah,
right? You remember that, right? So
yeah.
somewhere they have just mentioned, if you take the diff of that, if you do VM diff of those files, then there are some 7 8 characters which are different in those, right? Now the data before that is producing, it's bringing that hash buffers in one state, and then you continue hashing the remaining state, remaining, that's 8 7 8 bytes, whatever that is. And then you have another set of data which nullifies that effect, which is produced in these two different files, right? And then after that, the remaining data is same in both the files, right? So that computing that data, what data there should be, so that it produces a difference, and then subsequently you have a data which nullifies that. That has to be
Okay,
researched.
okay.
How they did, don't know, but yeah, maybe Soumitra sir can exactly tell us how they could have found out.
Mhm.
But keeping it to layman's discussion, this is how you have to compute and then produce a collision, right? And
No,
Got it.
hats Google, they did
I,
it.
I'll elaborate a little bit, Ajit, on that. The main idea is that when you do hashing or even encryption and stuff, we talk about key size or key length. We also talk about key strength. And what it means is that your key, or in this case, hashing, say, is 128 bit, but using clever math, as an example, Ajit was giving about birthday paradox, meet in the middle type of attacks. But we don't know what was the math. I haven't read the paper. But using clever math, we reduce the key space. So I was giving you example of 256. So imagine here it was 128 bit. Using different attacks, say they reduced it to 64 bits.
Hmm.
So once they've reduced this using good math to 64 bits, now it becomes a computation problem. But the problem is only 2 to the power 64 instead of 2 to the power 128. So there's a part of which is using clever math, and there's part of it that you use a lot of computational resources. And they had enough resources to be able to generate this collision, but they didn't really crack all the 128 bits. That will be they did not have enough resources to do a 128-bit collision. So there was some research that was published a few years back where actually they predicted that by 2018 or 19 this will be broken. And then somebody actually took up that challenge, used the computation based on the math that was published, and did find the collision, if that makes sense.
Got it. So in essence, I think uh, researchers or crypto analysts or people who work on these algorithms have a better understanding in terms of when certain algorithms could be broken,
Yes.
based on, the advancements in computing, Moore's law, and a lot of other things. So they would be the right people to ask, when do you think we should be scared of, selling, and going ahead and selling the Bitcoin rather than keeping it in our wallets?
You are right, Asim. They cannot tell about the cryptocurrencies, but they can definitely tell about the cryptographic schemes, because every scheme comes with an expiry attached to it, or some conditions are attached to it. That this scheme is good to be used under these conditions till this point of time, right? So that is true for all the schemes that we have, right? Satyam, you want to add on that?
I just want to add one thing. So there is two parts, as we discussed here, that there is a reason. Obviously, we already have post-quantum algorithms that are being discussed. NIST is trying to standardize them and so on. But as we know, over time, attacks come against these algorithms. And it takes 10, 20, 30 years of validation in the mathematical community or crypto community to see that, hey, these have stood the test of time and there are not so many attacks against them that can be done. So it is not a good idea also to jump on something completely new as well. So we might think, oh, quantum apocalypse is coming, so let's just jump to the next quantum resistant algorithm. For all we know, it may be even broken by your standard classical way. You don't even need quantum ways to break it because the math was not very sound. So there is a risk of that as well. So when we think about, okay, let's move to something different, we have to give it certain time, certain analysis for the researchers to find attacks and validate that this is a good strategy to go after.
Right.
So the post-quantum cryptography bandwagon, right? They're creating libraries and algorithms to work on current computing systems or current processors, right? So as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, what these algorithms or libraries or code or implementation is trying to do is increase the number of bits, so that it is still harder once we have enough number of qubits to be able to still crack it? Or what magic are they bringing that they can protect current systems against quantum systems by still doing the computation on x64 processors, for example?
Right. So Satyam, you would like to go first?
Yeah, I can go there. So the idea is not necessarily to increase the bits alone. So we have RSA 4096. We could obviously go to 8192 or 16384 or whatever. That we could do with existing algorithms as well. But once we have qubits enough, the algorithm itself is acceleratable on a quantum computer. The idea for post-quantum algorithms is that they are, given the current known math, not acceleratable with quantum computers. So whether you use classical or quantum, they are not easily acceleratable with quantum computers. The math at least doesn't allow for it today. Again, as I said, we may find some transformation of this problem which will allow it, but today, as far as we know, the research is that it's not. Having said that, it is true that some of these algorithms use very large key sizes. And that is actually a problem also, because if you want to run it on your, I don't know, watch, it doesn't have the capacity to run such large computations. So that is another reason why it's not so easy to jump to the post-quantum algorithms for everything. If you want to still do the payments with your Apple Watch or Android Watch, that will become harder.
And so there are companies who are trying to sell post-quantum safe crypto libraries for embedded systems. So I'm assuming they would be doing some kind of a, I don't know, algorithm cut or cost cut in terms of efficiency, which means then bringing in more problems into the implementation, which can then cause issues. Am I correct or am I hallucinating?
Okay, fine. I will take this, Satyam,
Sure.
and give a rejoinder. So, see, there are defenses against perceived post-quantum threats. Okay. Now, how these defenses are built? Okay. Let's understand the threats first. Okay. So, where we primarily use the PKI is in secure communication. Okay, even if I have to send, let's say, my confidential data to my bank or to my other company branch, I send it over TLS, right? I'm not using SSL because SSL is dead, so better word is TLS. Okay, so I'm sending it over TLS. Okay, the other branch receives it and saves it securely. So this, if this channel itself is threatened, then anyone can have that data in transit, right? So now, when I'm establishing this tunnel, what I'm doing is I'm authenticating first to another party and I'm sending some secret bits to that. Other party is receiving it and using those secret bits to negotiate a key, symmetric key. Once that key is negotiated, then I can encrypt that data on my side with that key, send it to you. You can decrypt it, and then you can use another encryption algorithm and save it. Right now, when I'm authenticating myself to you, I'm using asymmetric key cryptography. Okay. Now, if someone is capturing all that data, because over TCP, I'm first doing a handshake and I'm telling that I'll be using this algorithm and these are some random bits you can use to negotiate a secret or a session key, right? If someone is capturing that, and with quantum computers, they are able to break it and get those bits and reconstruct the symmetric key, right? Then they can decrypt all the data that I'm sending. That's the real threat, right? Now, what are the defenses? Defenses, one defense is like QKD, use quantum mechanism to negotiate a key. So even if someone traps into the communication, they won't be able to. First of all, the quantum, the fiber, etc., which we are using to generate a quantum keys, if that gets tampered or someone is tapping into it, so those are tamper evident. We will know and will not communicate, right? So there will be a dedicated fiber channel using which we can generate the keys on either side. Okay, so once you have securely generated the keys, then you can encrypt the data and send it over normal channels as well. Okay, now either you can use QKD, okay, that is quantum key distribution, or you have some other method out of the box where you have fixed the keys and you are using the same keys to encrypt the data and send, right? These are another mechanisms, or you use mechanisms which are secure from quantum computers like lattice based or NTRU, McAllis, those kind of schemes. Okay, and there are a lot of candidate schemes. Candidate as in we are considering them. If they are proven to be secure enough for, I don't know what should be the wait period, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Previously, we have been waiting for these algorithms for 30 years for proving their sanctity, and then they were used in our TLS cipher suite. Okay, but now we don't know how much time the industry and governing standards will take to standardize these algorithms. Okay, but yeah, whatever these candidates look promising, we'll be using that to negotiate our keys. But the encryption scheme will remain same. Key negotiation is what various quantum solutions offer you a defense against this quantum computers. Satyam, you want me to correct or add on that?
The only thing I will add is that doing QKD requires a dedicated fiber channel between the two endpoints. So that may not be very practical to do for home use
Yeah,
to a
obviously.
server.
I mean, my perspective is more from day-to-day use, right? I browse internet, I check my
Correct.
emails on the browser, and everywhere it is TLS, exchange of keys. And that is
Yeah,
where the challenge is. And plus on top of that, now you have, small devices which do not have enough compute to be able to communicate using whatever libraries are being created now. So my question was around that. If you are doing something for a system, one is this communication, whether it will be secure after using PQC library instead of conventional OpenSSL. And second is if you're using these small devices like watch and other things, how do you expect to do the same amount of computation? Because if you don't do, then you are cutting on something in the implementation, right? So when you cut on something, obviously you are introducing some kind of a threat.
right. So, Asim, what I feel is more than cryptography, maths, or physics, right? It will be more of financial equation. What we would like to break with our quantum computers is that your communication, mail communications that we would like to decrypt, or it's the two companies, two banks interchanging, exchanging whatever data, etc. Right?
No, but if you look at it, I mean, it's a known secret that these three-letter organizations or agencies have data farms where they're storing existing communication, even though they cannot break it, in the
Ha,
hope that one day, once the quantum computers are capable enough, they'll start breaking the crypto and then looking at the communication.
correct. Then what type of data is threatened? Okay, what type of transactions are threatened? Okay, you accessing your emails, etc., are not threatened because Google already has copy of your data.
Financial, I don't know,
Yeah, again, that has
government.
sensitivity. That financial data has a period of sensitivity. Only during this period, this data is sensitive. After that, even if that is disclosed, it doesn't have any sensitivity. But some communications that we had, okay, we will do this, right? And that's our private conversation. Okay, if that is disclosed in later, then our intent are disclosed. So something which we all want to keep it private or personal for a very, very long time or confidential, those things are threatened, right? And plus the company's essential or confidential data, which might have some implications even after it is disclosed after 10, 20 years, maybe your secrets or some plane that we have been developing and intellectual property involved in that. Those kind
Yeah.
of things are really, really at threat if such kind of technology is realized. Okay, so again, a lot of financial feasibility has to be applied. Uh, Means it's not a gun that you take and you just start spraying the bullets, right? Even if quantum computers are realized, people will think, what actually will be breaking with this? It has to be of that value that it justifies the cost that you are putting into the quantum processor for realizing this. Okay, and just small point, as Satyam said, that QKD over dedicated fiber channel is not feasible. What I say is, if you have a dedicated fiber, why do you even bother about encrypting the stuff? You can just send the data. No one is tampering it. No one is tapping it, right? So you don't need any cryptography over there, right? Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just add one thing to Asim, your question that as Ajit said, it's about the threat model. So forget quantum and stuff. The transactions we are doing, the SSL we are doing, there is part of private keys in my laptops, and there are everyday compromises. There are things which are stolen probably from millions of accounts and laptops and so on. So I go with this assumption in few years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever I'm doing will become public or maybe already public. It's, as you said, Google already has my emails and Facebook already has the list of my friends and stuff. Not saying that that means I will put all my data into public domain and make it public to everyone, but we have to recognize even in absence of these supercomputing ability with quantum, there are already some threats to it, and you have to say, okay, certain valuable things larger companies and stuff are trying to secure and store in different ways. Because of just the known existing threats, there is always a possibility and probability that you will not be able to safeguard it forever.
Yeah, I second that.
All right. Got it. All right. Your last words on quantum doomsday. Like, when do you think people will start screaming, selling their Bitcoin, deleting their compromised photos, and Ajit deleting from his video, from his laptop? When do you think that is going to be? When is that day coming?
Uh, okay, so I don't think that those days are coming anytime sooner. Maybe not be in next 30 years. That's what I feel. Yeah. Satyam?
Yeah, I would again say hard to say, but I would agree that it's at least 10 years out. But I believe that the algorithms, the Bitcoin stuff has the ability to evolve to newer stuff. My understanding is that the way things are moving, how these post-quantum work has already started and stuff, we will be able to migrate to that without facing that kind of, if you remember the Y2K problem from, if you are that old,
Yeah.
we were able to do the migration. For most of the time, it didn't end the world on millennium. So I am more positively hopeful than maybe I should be.
Yeah. So I'm with you on this one. I think uh, I'm not too much worried about Bitcoin specifically, where quantum computers breaking the crypto, because I think probably before that they will implement the required changes and do a fork. I think there are more important things to worry about, like the porn on his laptop
Exactly.
to be secured.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Put
So
it that way.
pretty good conversation. I think I learned more crypto than I learned in the last 10 years. And a lot of concepts are clear now. And yeah, and that's what I want for my viewers as well. So thank you so much, Ajit. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Thanks for
much,
ruining
Satyam.
my reputation.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
I have to talk to my lawyer. I mean, how this is gonna affect me and my company, but yeah, my lawyer must be happy with this.
Yeah.
No, so my guess here is that Seam has already broken into your laptop. Otherwise, how does he know?
Asim has already many a times. He takes my thumb and puts it on the yeah, fingerprint reader. He has
If you
unlocked.
found anything good, please share.
He will
Sure,
enjoy it.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
And
you so
thank you
much.
so much, everyone, for viewing this patiently till now. And if you like this or hate this, please comment, subscribe, follow wherever you are viewing this. I would love to have more conversations, informal conversations like this to break myths.
Right.
Thank you so
Keep
much, guys.
Hacker, and you will always have some great gyan and professional faltugiri from his invited guests like us. Okay. Thank you and take care.
Thanks a ton, Asim.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.